Hey, this is Dave from the Adobe Character Animator team, and welcome to the February 2018 episode of Tips and Tricks. Today we'll start off the Community Spotlight, which includes a pretty big milestone for Character Animator on primetime national television. Then we'll move on into a quick hack to show you how to change the walk behavior to make a foreground and background move with your walking character. And then finally, we'll end with a 12-minute pre-production look into my latest project, Evan Flamethrower Robot Detective. This is gonna be a good episode, so I hope you enjoy. So this month, we've got to start out with Our Cartoon President. This started out on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. You may have seen the live cartoon Donald Trump character that Colbert would sometimes interview. It was a little skit they would do based off of Character Animator, and they brought in a bunch of different characters for different episodes. But now it's spun off into its own primetime animated series on Showtime. And this administration has a huge cast of colorful characters, and the talented team behind the show used Character Animator to bring all these characters to life. And we even get a nice little credit in the end credits, which is fantastic. And it has an awesome credit song as well playing in the background, which I love. But it was awesome to see Character Animator being used in a real broadcast TV environment for a long-form show with the full team of writers and artists and animators, and by all accounts it's been great. It's been a great tool for them, and they're able to bring their vision to life. So the first episode is streaming for free on YouTube and Facebook, so you can watch it right now for free, and future episodes will show up for Showtime subscribers. But it is hilarious. It's really well done. The voices, the characters are just fantastic. It was a really nice thing to see, and it's a pretty big milestone for Character Animator. So we're all very happy over here. So great work, everyone, and can't wait to watch the rest of the season. All right, so raise your hand if you work at a company and have ever had to watch one of those training or safety videos they make you do. At least in my experience, these are usually the opposite of entertaining. They're long, they're boring, they're monotone, usually some bad acting. But Safety Action Team Go is a Saturday morning cartoon style show that was made by Enlighten Media to help make a corporate safety video in a version that's entertaining but still in an educational way. And this works really well for Character Animator, this format, because the team communicates through video screens. So at any time, there's often multiple characters on a screen talking and reacting to each other. I talked to the lead artist and animator, Dana Berman, and got some tips from him. He said, number one, good writing and good performances are key. We brought in some actors from a local theater and improv group to do the acting. I definitely agree with that. Great voice acting can go a long way. Number two, don't underestimate how long creating art assets and animation take. The actual animating in Character Animator is actually one of the quickest and easiest parts, he said, but making all the puppets and art and backgrounds, that took the most time. And finally, number three, he says, when you do something complex like this, be patient. You may need to use proxy art to get your edit roughed in, and then you may need to render out what you have, preferably with a time code, to take notes on what you need to change in the edit, and then edit based off of that list. So I would love to see more corporate training videos like this. I would love to watch Safety Action Team Go rather than the normal stuff they throw out there. So I think this is a great trend, and I hope we see more things like this. Next up, we've got Rob Clayton. So Rob is a huge fan of the band Cheap Trick and has been making videos about them on his Instagram, Respect Xander, named after the lead singer Robin Zander. Now, Rob doesn't consider himself much of an artist, but regardless, he started making these silly little videos with a kind of simple South Park style. First, he tried with After Effects, and he said it just felt too cumbersome and difficult for him to do character animation, but then he found Character Animator and was instantly hooked. And the cool thing is that these videos have reached the actual band and they love them. He got their guitarist, Rick Nielsen, to do a video with him. Gene Simmons from Kiss saw a video that Rob made about him, and a lot more. I asked Rob for some tips if people want to do these sort of videos, and he said, number one, he has a directory called Props and Reusable Components on his computer. He said it was worthless initially, but after 2 years of doing this, it helps him save a lot of time. He has like over 30 characters that he's made, so he's rarely making new characters anymore. Instead, he's reusing the same characters over and over again. He said for a non-artist, that really helps him. So this is great. Rob was able to connect to his favorite band by using Character Animator to create these funny animated stories. And so if there are, bands or celebrities or other things out there that you'd love to connect to, making an animated version of them might be your way to get your foot in the door. So awesome work, Rob. I'm subscribed to your Instagram channel, and I love watching all of your new cartoons come in. And finally, this month we've got Get Mads. He considers himself a storytime animator, where you basically do an animated version of things that have happened to you. And he's got this great expressive character and a really fast-paced, well-edited style that works great. And he's blown up recently. He's gotten about 25,000 subscribers and counting on YouTube. So I asked him for some quick tips, and he said first would be collaboration, like featuring another creator to record a voiceover and play a character in your video, or just by drawing hidden cameos in your backgrounds and scenes. Giving small details like this and little Easter eggs gives that extra layer of charm to your work. And second, he says, don't be a perfectionist, but still don't settle for less. What I mean by this is don't be too afraid to improve and experiment. Especially since I switched over from Flash to Character Animator, it's incredibly easy to slowly upgrade your character over time. Don't aim for being a perfectionist. You should be happy with when you make a mistake, because it means you can learn from it and make the next video look even better. And most mistakes, no one's even going to notice them, so just take it into account for the next video rather than spending the time on going back and fixing and making everything perfect. It allows you to put more videos out there, learn from your mistakes, and improve on them in the next video. So this is awesome work. Really looking forward to future videos from you. And hey, if you ever need a voiceover for a character, let me know. One of the things I love the most is when someone takes a tool in Character Animator and uses it in a completely different way than we originally intended. And it leads to some really interesting, cool effects. So last month, for example, someone made a comment on our YouTube tips video saying, hey, how do you do a camera system? I'm not sure. I linked to a video where said you should probably do that in After Effects. But then the guys from Nuketown, who we featured in last month's Tips and Tricks episode, said they came up with a way to do a rudimentary camera system in Character Animator. So I've got my Walkbot character here, and I've got a background and foreground as well. And when I press left and right, look what's happening. He's actually walking through and having the background and foreground move relative to him. This is all happening inside Character Animator. And all it is kind of a hacked version of the walk behavior. So let's go into rig mode and see how this was done. Okay, so the trick here is Walkbot number one is basically walking in place. He's staying still, and the other things are moving around him, creating the illusion of movement. So his walk behavior that's been added to him here, I have set it to with left and right arrow keys, set to walk, and the important thing is body speed is set to 0%, meaning he will walk in place. And by the way, this is a modified version of Walkbot. Walkbot, you can get from the start menu here. You just click on him. But basically all I did was group together his head and body by going to Puppet Group Layers and make a group and then tag that as frontal, and then make another group and change the X scale to -100 to have him facing the other way, and change that to left profile, tag that as a left profile, and then the duplicate again and make that the right profile. This way he's got a standing still, moving left, and moving right view, the main three views that the walk behavior is looking for. Just a simple little trick to get those different views. All right, so here's the background. It's just a simple one-layer PSD with a nice long, scene. And I at the top level here, I added the walk behavior. So same thing, left and right arrow keys, walk, all of that stuff. But the two things I mainly changed were I changed the strength to 0%, meaning it's not going to bounce up and down like a normal walk cycle. And the body speed, I changed that to -25%, meaning when I'm pressing right, to make the character go right, instead this is going to move the opposite way at a -25% body speed. And so it gives that illusion of moving forward. Now to make this work, you have to tag your layer as hip. So you'll notice, this is definitely not a full body, but notice this has been tagged as a hip. And because of that, just this one tag is helpful. That's what the walk cycle is looking for to do some forward momentum. And then the foreground's done the exact same way. This layer has been tagged as a hip. It has the walk behavior added to it, strength is 0, and body speed is -50, meaning it's going to move a little bit faster in the opposite direction, giving that sense of parallax and making the foreground elements move a little quicker than the background elements. And so when you're in record or stream mode, the one thing you'll want to make sure you do is select and arm all of your 3 elements. So I've got my walkbot here sandwiched between the foreground and background, and because they're all selected, it means they're all going to react to me when I press the left to right arrow keys. So they will all move at their own speed, their own setting. And so I've done, 2 layers here basically, but that you could have, tons of different layers of mountain ranges or things in the foreground or all sorts of different stuff. And you could use this in any number of ways. So congrats to the Nuketown guys. This is an awesome hack. I love it. I'll be personally using this for some projects in the future. And I hope others of you will as well. So a lot of times in these tips videos, we show the rigging process. We get really deep into the weeds about how to, tag things or manipulate things or add behaviors to things to make them as expressive as possible. And then we also show the final finished pieces that people have created and stuff like the community spotlight. But I think a lot of time we don't paint a complete picture of the full workflow from start to finish of creating an animated project with Character Animator as a key component. And so that's what I'm attempting to fix with Evan Flamethrower Robot Detective. This is an interactive YouTube animated series that I'm working on. And over the next couple of months, what I want to do is walk through the process, everything from writing the script to doing the voiceovers to creating the art assets, editing, recording, compositing, distribution, every step of the process, talking about it here and giving a few tips along the way. So for me, I think it starts with a good story and interesting characters to be a part of that story. If you don't have interesting characters, then Character Animator is probably not the way you want to tell your story. But I'll start in a sketchbook and just sketch out a bunch of ideas of those characters in the world that they inhabit. So, different details, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, what are the features, that sort of thing. And then specifically for Character Animator, I focus on things like what their eyes are going to look like. Do they have pupils or not? What are their mouths going to look like? Do I need to make a custom mouth set? Because these guys are robots, should I use little waveform displays? Or will their mouths be displayed on a screen? Or will it be a nutcracker jaw type of thing? So those are things I begin to think about as I'm creating and sketching out these really basic sketches. I mean, these are, no more than a minute or 2 per sketch, but the idea is just to explore ideas and get some basic structure and thinking across about how I'm going to eventually create them. So next, I don't know if this is just the designer in me speaking or not, but I kind of like to start with a logo. I like to think of what is the title of this, what would it look like, what would a coming soon poster look like for this, and get a sense of kind of the style and overall feeling that this is going to evoke. And so, I found some metal and flame and spark textures and put them all together. I had the Evans robot lying around from previous examples. He is Evan Flamethrower in this version, so I'm reusing a puppet that I already had working. So for me, I got this, I printed it out, I taped it to my wall, and I said, this is where I'm starting from. Next up for me came the script. And so this is where I started to write all the dialogue of what's happening, people narrating at the beginning, interacting with each other and talking. When I knew something was going to happen, like, show these doors showing up in the background, I would write that in italics. And basically just, go through it and try to come up with an interesting, engaging story. And then for my voice actors, I wanted to get that process started early. So basically I copied and pasted stuff, put it in its own script to send to people, and then, kind of made the lines that they're not saying lighter and the ones they are saying darker. So it was very clear what they're supposed to say. And then they would send me back basically a WAV file with all the final things. And I told them to do 2 takes per line. That way, right in a row, I can make sure, just in case there's any audio issues or they pronounce something better one way or there's more intonation one way or the other, that gives me a couple of choices to work from. And the nice thing that these scripts start to do is give you a sense of all the art assets you will need. Once you're done with this, you will know, okay, these are exactly the 8 or 9 characters I will need to know. Or will I need some background characters or things in certain scenes as well? And that allows you to create a list of all that stuff and use that as your art production list. We go over character creation a lot in these tips videos, so I'm not going to dig too deeply into this. Just know that when this does come out, all of these characters will be available as free downloads, so you can dig into them, check out how exactly they were made. But basically, it's a lot of time in Photoshop. It's a lot of layers, it's a lot of textures, fooling around with color overlays and things to help differentiate each character from one another. So yeah, it's a lot of time. Art production always takes a while. I was probably going at a rate of about 2 characters a day. Each character would probably take me about 4 hours to put together. Your mileage may vary, but that's kind of how much time I budgeted for my character production. And then I did the same thing for environments. And so as you start to think about where your characters will live, don't just think about a flat background plate for them to be on top of. Think about foreground and background elements. So for example, in this interrogation room scene, you know, all of these are different elements. So the desk is its own element, the chair is its own element, the pipe up here is its own element. And that allows me to do, when I do a pan shot or a character is walking or something like that, I can have these different elements move at different rates, at different speeds, just like we were showing with that Nuketown camera hack earlier, to give a sense of parallax and dimension. So I always think of my puppets as kind of the center stage. My characters are in the middle, but then I'm always going to have things behind and in front of them. And maybe they'll be a little blurry to get a sense of depth of field or something like that. I'll add, you know, dust particles and smoke and effects later to give a sense of atmosphere. But for now, as I'm thinking of my background plates and foreground elements, I'm just thinking about what pieces would look good moving around if a camera was moving through them. So the more you can break things into parts for these background elements, the better. So here's another environment, the office. Basically, Evan and the chief will walk from this side all the way over here to these doors where the different suspects are for interrogation. All these elements, you know, there's a lot of different things that can be moved as foreground elements or background elements. Again, trying to think of all those different things, these steel beams, for example. I only made one of them. I might do multiple steel beams that will show up in the foreground, but I only have to draw it once, and then maybe I'll make it look a little bit bigger or blurrier or something like that, or add some color overlays in After Effects later to help differentiate it a little more from one another. All right, so this last section with art, this probably took me about 3.5 days, and it's only for the first 30 seconds of the whole cartoon. So it seems like a lot of time on one specific part of the cartoon, but to me, it was time well spent because it's the establishing shot. This is when the video first starts off, people have an idea of where these robots live, what it's all about, and I wanted to make that feel as interesting and engaging and colorful and fun as possible to draw people in and get the story going. So I'll show you the final product in a minute, but immediately, like, I started off with this yellow brush-stroked sky to give it a different texture and feeling and immediately feel different. You know, I could have just gone with a basic blue flat sky, but I thought this should be different and immediately stand out to people and be engaging. And then I started to do these little scribbled clouds and a sun, and then started to do some mountains in the background. And I just would do different layers to know that these would move at different rates and different speeds in this panned shot that's going down to make it feel like it's all one big connected city and feel like these things are really in the distance, and things like the city and then this more foreground version of the city. And so as things pan down, you'll see the city, you know, show up in the background, and it really gives it a sense of depth and just, you know, enormousness. It feels like there's this giant city that these robots live in, when in fact it's just these, you know, little pieces, these layers put together. And then finally we end up at this police station here with a little door opening. So Evan is going to walk into this door. I'm going to have little characters walking back and forth in front of the street, and then different foreground elements like a tree, lights. I have a bird that's going to be actually many birds floating in the background, but that's just kind of a starter bird there. And then some cars that'll kind of be speeding in front of all the characters. And so all these pieces by themselves are, okay, that's fine. But when you move them together, and it's really simple stuff, it's just moving these at different speeds up and down, you get an effect like this. So the title pixelates in, you see birds flying in the background, you start to go down, cloud blurred in the foreground to give a sense of depth. The city starts to come up, you see these floating cars showing up. It's those same car assets with some different color variations. Here comes the foreground, a little steam. You go to the police station, you see characters starting to walk around inside of it, dust flies up, and Evan walks into the door. So yeah, this is just 25 seconds long, and it's, just all these elements moving at different rates and just creating this initial idea of where these characters live. Instead of just starting directly in the office scene, for example, or the interrogation room, this gives it a little more life. It makes the world feel a little more complete and makes you wonder kind of, hey, what's going on back here? What are all these things? There's these flying cars, mountains in the background, yellow sky. It hopefully creates an interesting world. And so I think spending the time to get that establishing shot right, I think is time well spent. The last thing I'm going to talk about today in terms of pre-production before you get into the animation process is the voiceovers. So I did a voice, I did Evan's voice, my wife did a voice, several of the co-workers on the character animator team did voices. It's a lot of fun to get your friends and family involved in this sort of stuff. But what you're seeing here is an Adobe Audition. This is how I set up my tracks. So it might look a little scary, but it's really not that bad. So let's dig in here. And what you'll see is I've got my first track is Evan. This is all of his stuff. Second track is Suzanne X3. He's talking and interrogating her at this particular scene. Extra characters. There's a throwaway gag here where like a coffee machine has one line. That's showing up in this extra track. And then a soundtrack that I just put together some loops in GarageBand just to make it give a little more atmosphere in the background. But what I would do, so when I first brought it in, the first waveform looks something like this. And this is all the takes, everything, 2 takes that I did for every line. And then I dragged that into this multi-track session. And basically I would listen through the 2 takes, decide which one I wanted, trim it to exactly the right part, slice it, and then do the same for the next, what she's responding. And so I would get this back and forth of the different people talking and get all my timing down exactly like I want it. Now, the reason for this format is it makes it really easy to bring things into Character Animator later. So with Character Animator, you want just what one person is saying. I don't want to hear, when I'm computing the lip sync for Suzanne, for example, I don't want to hear CoffeeBot or Evan saying anything. So the nice thing is I can just press this little M thing and mute all the other tracks. And then I could export this out and just say, Suzanne voiceover. And then that's something I could bring into my Character Animator scene and just do Suzanne's voice. And then when I'm ready for Evan, I'll mute everyone else and just do Evan's voice. Same with the extra characters. I'll mute everyone and just do the extra characters. And then finally, in After Effects, then I'll export a full mix with everything together, and the timing's gonna line up just right, because I know here at 44 seconds that, Evan is taking a break from talking, Suzanne is talking, CoffeeBot's getting ready to talk, but I can see where they all are, and the timing is going to be the same for every character. So at 44 seconds, Suzanne's going to be saying something, maybe pointing with her finger. Evan maybe is recoiling at what she's saying and has a reaction to it. CoffeeBot maybe getting ready in the background. I can animate against that timing. So I spend a lot of time in here getting the timing, what it feels just right. I'll listen to it several times, move a few things around. Even just a few milliseconds can make a huge difference. So it's worth spending some time getting this just right. All right, so we're going to stop there this month. That's the pre-production side of things. Next month, we'll move into the performing, the animating, putting things together in Character Animator and getting all the mannerisms and reacting to those voiceovers just right, and then compositing those characters together in After Effects with camera pans and smoke effects and all sorts of stuff to make these compelling scenes. So it's been a fun project. I'm really enjoying this whole thing, and I hope you are getting some out of it as well. All right, that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. And if you happen to be in the Seattle area, the Emerald City Comic-Con is happening at the beginning of next month, March 1st through 4th. And we're going to be doing a few panels there, talking with some people who are using Character Animator to do some awesome projects with comics and illustration and art and all that fun stuff. I'll be there on Saturday the 3rd. I think I'm leading up a panel then, and some other people from the team will be there some other dates. So please, if you're going, check us out and definitely stop by and say hi. Other than that, if you have cool stuff you're doing with Character Animator, we would love to see it. So please tweet it to me at OKSamurai on Instagram or Twitter, or use the hashtag Character Animator. And I found out recently that someone made us a subreddit. So if you go to reddit.r/Character Animator, people are starting to post some stuff there, and I posted a question there. So please feel free to interact with the community there as well. And otherwise, if you have any questions, concerns, issues, bug reports, that sort of thing, the best place still to get help is the official Character Animator forums. So that's it for this month. Thank you very much for watching, and have fun.